for Two's newest show where we break down your Dynasty rosters. I'm joined here by my co-host, Jerry Wilkie. How are you doing tonight, man?
Doing great. Looking forward to kicking this off, getting our first roster in today, and hopefully it takes off.
Yes, sir. Just like Jerry said, this is actually our very first show, so thank you for joining us on this ride. Like I said, we're gonna be breaking down your dynasty rosters. We'll be getting to redraft rosters too once the season starts, but as you know, the off season is the time for dynasty. Um, just a little bit of the logistics before we get into it. We will be sending out a Google form where you can submit your roster. The best way to guarantee that your roster is reviewed is by joining Going for Two's Discord channel. The link will be in the description. And if you want to bump yourself up to the top of the queue, you can also subscribe to Going for Two's YouTube. Speaking of which, please like, subscribe, and turn on the YouTube notifications. And if you're listening to this on audio, you can go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review. It's all very much appreciated. So getting back to it for a second, Jerry, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, where they can find you, and what you've been working on?
Yeah, so I'm Jerry. You can find me at Jerry Wilkie FM on Twitter. We have, I'm there all the time. I just want to go back to like what you said about breaking down the rosters. If you're familiar with the PLPs, what Jeff has been doing for the past couple of years, where they break down the whole league. This is similar to that, but it's basically just focused on just your roster. So you submit yours with your draft picks and everything, and we'll go over it from top to bottom and kind of just let you know where you need to go. And instead of breaking down the 12 or 14 teams that are in a specific league, we're breaking down just yours. But yeah, I've been with Going for Two for a little bit over a year now, primarily focused on the IDP side of things. Been getting into some best balls and some dynasties, and that's basically it. Just all over the fantasy world.
Yeah, well, thanks for covering me for me there. I should have totally gone into it a little bit more. Like Jerry just said there, this show is dedicated to you. It's dedicated to your team, where we answer the questions you want to know, maybe the direction that we see your team going in. This is the kind of show you don't want your league mates to know about. And then once you submit, when we do a breakdown of your roster, we'll of course send you a direct link to that show, with a timestamp as well. But do dive in and join us whenever you can, because I'm sure we're going to be going over a lot of interesting things, common themes over an off season, the players to watch and such as we see them on someone's team. I'm sure it'll be helpful for you. Yeah, and then just before we dive in, a little bit about myself. I'm actually a pretty new writer here at Going for Two. You can find me, at Twitter at nrahul11. Yeah, just started in the end of March. Did a few scout reports, a few data-driven articles, but really been enjoying my time, like getting to know everyone, contribute to the channel. Been on a few shows, and I'm really psyched to start this podcast. I'm really thinking about the direction of people's rosters is just so much fun. Like, kind of scheming, oh, is this a good offer to make, or do I want to take my team in this direction? I just love doing that stuff. So I'm really excited to get into that. Before we get to our first roster too, I know this is best ball season. So if you do want to go ahead and get into some best ball drafts, we would love to recommend Underdog Fantasy, who are, sponsors of today's show. Underdog has it all. Industry-leading best ball leagues with huge tournaments, private leagues, and pick'ems. And they're not just football. You can find all your sports on there. Scratch that itch by playing contests. And, you want to play basketball, you want to play some soccer. I think they have golf on there too. So really, whatever you want. You can sign up with our promo code GF2 and get a deposit match up to $100. It's as simple as that. Sign up, use the promo code GF2, and start playing and start winning. So, yeah, really go ahead and get into those leagues. Underdog just makes it so easy, because otherwise you just have to wait for a startup to come around. You have to get your 10 to 12 like buddies that or hop into a league with people you may not know, but Underdog just makes it as easy as clicking a button and then you're into a draft. With that all being said, let's get into the first ever team breakdown of the fantasy assessment. I'm really excited to get started here, and we have a team from the one and only Jeff Lambert, founder of Going for Two. One of the sharpest minds really in the industry as well. So let's look at what he's got cooking in his home league. Jerry, if you want to pull up the screen, let the people see the roster. So let me just actually zoom in. Oops. Zoom this a little bit more. But here, what we have here is a 1 QB league, PPR, 12-team league. It looks like we've got, what is that? 6, 7, 9 starters. When we talk about starters, we're not including kickers or defense. I don't really have a place for those in my Dynasty leagues, but it looks like 9 starters, PPR league, 12-team. So, for future reference, if you do want to submit, just jump in the Discord and we'll have a form for you. But here we are with our first team. So Jeff actually finished as the champion in his last league. So, doing pretty well there. Nobody but Jeff. I'm not really surprised here at all. Jerry, you want to kick us off talking about the QBs on this roster?
Yeah, so he's got a decent QB room. Obviously, we see Jared Goff here, but if you go further down, you got Kyler Murray and Trey Lance. Looks like you got Anthony Richardson in their rookie draft that they had. Not sure when they did it, but so a solid room of QBs. Ideally, you have 4 starters there, but who knows what's going on with Trey. Kyler Murray is going to have a couple weeks off to start the season. Hopefully he's back. I mean, depending on the direction of the Cardinals, maybe he doesn't even suit up this year. We don't know. But Goff is a decent fantasy quarterback. We saw the year that he was with LA, took him to the Super Bowl. He had a really good year that year. He had a good year last year. He is without his one of his targets, Jameson Williams, for the first 6 games with the suspension. But he still has Amon-Ra St. Brown. They grabbed Sam Laporta in the draft. He's got a couple of good running backs out of the backfield that can catch the ball. So, I mean, you're going to get points all over the place from Jared Goff. And he just doesn't give you the rushing upside that these other quarterbacks will. Trey, Kyler, and even Anthony Richardson are going to give you better ceilings. Once Anthony Richardson gets going, he should be a week 1 starter, and he should start the whole season. I don't think they're going to go back on him, but once he gets going and is more consistent, maybe gives you like 195, 200 yards passing a game, but gives you that rushing upside. Anthony Richardson might take over as a starting QB for this roster. But we obviously don't have the other 11 rosters in front of us, but this is a solid quarterback room. Not much that I would do. I'm not really actively looking to replace anybody here because I do have full confidence in Goff for 2023. I think Anthony Richardson could be the future. If people are getting desperate for quarterbacks, maybe you can move Kyler Murray or Trey Lance if he's announced a starter or ends up getting moved somewhere else. I know Minnesota's been in the talks, but I think he's got the bodies there to compete.
Yep. No, I love that breakdown there. You would think that collectively it is one of the stronger rooms in the league. It is a bit of an interesting dynamic where I would say that Goff does have, is likely to finish the highest scoring quarterback of the ones of the 4 that he has, in the upcoming season. But when you look at 2024 and ahead, you don't really want Goff starting there. If you had to move one of the options, Goff, Kyler, Trey, or AR, who would you be looking to trade?
I mean, obviously right now the biggest return is going to get you, or the biggest return you're going to get is probably from AR. But I'm not looking to move him right now. You have to wait on some news on Trey Lance to really get any value out of him. And so basically, like, if you're looking to move one right now and get something in return for him that's not AR, it's probably Goff because he's the only other one that's going to give you, at least the first couple of weeks, a body to put out there.
Right, right. No, I totally agree. It is a good situation, but there are just so many pieces here that you're almost tempted to think that there's excess value that you can maybe capitalize on, but it's not like having if he had, let's say, like a Trevor Lawrence and a Lamar Jackson, then it's like, oh, both of them are highly valued in the market. You don't really need both of them, but you've kind of got your asterisks next to each of the QBs. But a good room here from Jeff, especially in a one QB league. You can't be too upset with that.
Mhm.
So let's move on now to the running backs. What do you think, Jerry?
He's got a solid room. Obviously, we got Hall coming back from that injury. Ramondre, he's one of my guys. I ended up moving him in another league, but I did get I got the rights to 101, so Bijan in return. So I'm not too mad at that move.
Would love to see
I
that.
mean, all the leagues that I have Ramondre, and I'm very excited about this year. And it's really like it's funny because like years past we were never saying that about New England running backs.
Mm-hmm.
We were always like, oh, it's going to be a committee. They lost Damian Harris, so I think Ramondre is the guy. They just cut James Robinson too.
Right.
So I mean Pierre Strong and drawing a blank on the other
Kevin
one, or
Harris.
Ty Montgomery too. Yeah, Kevin Harris,
Yeah.
Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris, and Ty Montgomery are all. I mean, they're going to get their carries, they're going to get their touches, they're going to be on the field. But Ramondre is going to be like a 70% workload kind of guy. You got Javante on there. He could start the season a little behind the eight ball. So I mean, you're probably looking. I mean, not probably, but you might be looking at Javante and Brees Hall out for 1, 2, 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see if and how many IR spots are on, but if there are any,
3 IR spots.
Okay, so that might open up 2 roster spots to start the season if they're not ready to go. If they are, then that's a nice 1, 2, 3 punch between Ramondre, Brees Hall, and Javante Williams.
Mm-hmm.
If not, McKinnon, AJ Dillon, Samaje Perine would be the replacement for Javante Williams. So there are other bodies to throw in there. Being a 2 running back league and 2 flex, might have to look more into flexing the wide receivers over the running backs. But overall, it's a good room. I mean, Malik Davis has a chance to get some carries, being the second guy in Dallas unless they pick up a vet. Jerome Ford, same thing in Cleveland, being the second guy in Cleveland unless they pick up a vet. AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones have been seeing a lot of field together. Sean Tucker, he went undrafted. That's not really always the best thing for a running back, and we even seen it. James Robinson's first year, he dominated,
Right.
and then 3 years later, he's not even on a team anymore, and that's like the draft capital. He doesn't have that, so there's a little room there in Tampa. I'm a huge Rashad White guy, so I'm really hoping that Sean Tucker doesn't take off. But he's definitely a guy to roster and at least go through camp with. Might be the first cut guy if you need to cut somebody down, because obviously Jeff doesn't have a defense, so we might be looking at cutting somebody if he has to fill a roster spot. But overall, it's a solid room. I mean, I'd probably put it like I said, we don't have everybody's rosters in front of us, but just off the top, I'd probably put it in like the top 4 teams for running backs, unless somebody's stacking like a Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler and Bijan Robinson.
Right.
But it's a good room overall.
It's definitely a good room. That I would be a little bit concerned heading into the next season. Of course, Jeff did go out and win the league. He does hold the championship belt, but it's not like this is a team filled with aging studs. There are a lot of young pieces. Of course, we'll get into the honestly excellent wide receiver core in just a sec. But as far as a running draft, the running back room goes, you might be a little bit worried about how you're moving into next year. Ramondre, I like the way you said that. He should be a stud. I think this is a guy who's probably going to be getting 20 plus touches a game, and 5 of those might be targets or catches. So he should be locked in RB1. But with Brees, with Javante, you do have that injury worry, especially to start the year. He does have, the depth isn't bad for the running back room. He actually told us, and we can see here, playoff MVP Jerick McKinnon. There are pieces that could contribute, but I'd be a little hesitant of pushing my chips in and going all in, because it's there could be those teams with like the CMCs and the the Saquons and Austin Eckler's definitely. But I like what we're looking at here for sure. So let's move into what I think is definitely the strength of the team, and that's the wide receiver room. So Jerry, what do you think? What do you think about this team here?
Well, there's not much to say about the first guy, Justin Jefferson. He's wide receiver 1 across pretty much everybody's board, unless you're getting ranked by a Bengals fan, you might have Jamar Chase up there. Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, not much more to say. It's tough, like with Deebo. I think if it's going to be Sam Darnold or Brock Purdy, I think Deebo has not that. I think he has more PPR value with those two than if it was going to be Trey Lance. So you're kind of hoping that one of those two are under center, because we saw last year that we obviously saw Deebo have a top 2 wide receiver finish 2 years ago, but then last year the rushing went down, and and I don't know if they're going to go back to him rushing, especially now with Christian McCaffrey there with Elijah Mitchell on the times that he's on the field. But being a nice 1-2 punch, or even a 1-2-3 punch with Kittle and Ayuk, Deebo, he's still got that quarter or wide receiver 2. He's a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. Jalen Waddle playing second fiddle to Tyreek Hill, same thing. I mean, he has wide receiver 1 upside. Anything happens to Tyreek Hill, Waddle just slots right in, and we saw Tua and company support both of those wide receivers all last year. So I have no problems with any of those 3. DJ Moore, switching teams, going to play with Justin Fields. He really hasn't had an elite quarterback to begin with throughout his whole career, but now he gets Justin Fields, might be better for him. He's got a little bit of competition there with Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, but he should go there. He should be the one, and hopefully he just continues to do what DJ Moore does: 1,400 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's all we could ask for from him.
Very consistent with that.
Yeah, that's all he's been doing. Hopefully he gets to the end zone a little bit more. The bench is also pretty solid. I mean, Michael Gallup does get a little bump down because they brought in Brandon Cooks. Corey Davis gets a little bit of bump up because they brought in Aaron Rodgers. Jameson Williams, obviously, if you could stash IR on the taxi in this league, that's a free spot right there for the first 6 weeks when he comes back. We already talked about his quarterback. I think he should be solid. Rashid Shaheed had a pretty solid year last year. He gets a quarterback upgrade as well. The only thing is, what are we doing, or not we, but like what's going on with Michael Thomas? Is Shaheed going to be the 3 behind Olave and Thomas, or is he going to be an every down wide receiver on the opposite side of Chris Olave? I guess we'll find out what's going on there. Zay Flowers, everybody loves him. The room's a little full there too with Bateman and Odell Beckham Jr. Mark Andrews probably going to get majority of the targets, so he's definitely a guy to stash, kind of see how the target share is there. And Michael Wilson and Nakua on the taxi. Michael Wilson got a big jump within the past couple weeks with DeAndre Hopkins getting released. Nakua, he's just another guy in a crowded room that's behind Cooper Kupp. I mean, I know a lot of people like him. I personally like Van Jefferson, but you also got Ben Skoranek there. So
I think Tyler Higbee is really going to be the quote unquote wide receiver 2 there. I mean, Tyler Higbee is someone I'm looking at as a late round tight end, or a cheap maybe a 3rd round pick as a trade option. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. Really, this is the kind of wide receiver room that we all dream of having in our dynasty league.
You got bodies.
Yeah, I got a lot of bodies, and I think with the youth that you get from, of course, the front line in Jeddah's Waddle, but I think especially with Jameson Williams and Zay Flowers, you have the potential for this room to get better as well. Towards the end of the season into next season, of course, DJ Moore too. In theory, with playing with the best quarterback that he's had in his career, I think for me, he's going to be the undoubted one in Chicago. The problem more is what is the size of the metaphorical passing pie really there. But yeah, no, I really love the wide receiver room that Jeff's built. I'll just finish off with I think the most interesting player here is Debo Samuel, who I'm a little bit less high on. I like the thinking he was probably going for a little Trey Lance Debo stack, but you probably would prefer, I think, especially Brock Purdy to be in there for the passing volume. But with the addition of CFC, you did see Debo's rushing scale back, and that's what really was propping him up into being that elite wide receiver. I think San Francisco is just one of those teams that the weapons are so good, but everyone could be a little bit boom or bust, heading into the next year, especially also with the way that Ayuk was playing last year. I think Ayuk is one of the more underrated NFL players. I'm not sure about fantasy just because it's kind of the same reasons it's so crowded, but I think Debo is maybe a little bit of a question mark heading into the future. But yeah, we'll finish up with the position groups with tight end. So tell me what do you think about this tight end room?
Tight ends are pretty solid overall. I like two of them. Well, I mean, I like Komet too, but Kittle, we saw a lot. I mean, we even saw like George Kittle wanting Purdy to be the guy. So, I mean, I think for fantasy, people want Purdy to be the guy as well if they're a Kittle owner. We saw the most consistency with Kittle. We saw him be pretty much a tight end one with Kittle, or we saw Kittle be a tight end one with Purdy. So I think we all want Brock Purdy to be the guy. If Brock Purdy's a guy, Kittle has basically tight end 3 overall upside.
Right.
I don't think he's gonna, because he's still, I mean, he's the better blocker of the big 3 between Andrews and Kelsey. So like, yeah, blocking doesn't give you fantasy points, but he's gonna be on the field a lot. But he could be up there with those other 2, and yeah. But I love Kyle Pitts. I'm still in on Kyle Pitts. I think that we're gonna see closer to what he was the year before, his rookie year, with all the yards. And
sorry to interrupt. Am I tripping, or is Kyle Pitts not on this link?
Am I looking at a different roster?
I totally saw him on the screenshots that Jeff has
that's what I'm.
Yeah, well, Jeff, you'll have to get in the comments and tell us what's going on with the room here, because that does change things. But let's I'm pretty sure Kyle Pitts is here in this room, so keep going, Jerry.
Yeah, so we'll say he has Kyle Pitts. Obviously, like I said, I like Kyle Pitts. He had a good rookie year with over 1,000 yards. He didn't score on American soil his rookie year, but then he did last year. But then he got hurt. The positive thing is, and like, it's really hard to predict like how the Falcons' offense is really going to spread out. Obviously, Bijan's there. They got a top 10 pick in Drake London already. Kyle Pitts is a top 10 pick. Bijan, like I said, is a top 10 pick. So you got the bodies to have a solid offense. And I just saw a graphic earlier. I think it was from PFF, and I don't know, you could take it with a grain of salt, but Atlanta's offensive line was in the top 10. So like, you have everything going for you for the Atlanta offense, except for, it depends on what you feel about Desmond Ridder. Now the positive thing is we haven't seen a regular season NFL pass from Ridder to Kyle Pitts. They never crossed over. Pitts got hurt before Ridder started playing. Mm-hmm. So we don't know what that connection is going to be. They could pop off and be the next Lamar Mark Andrews connection, or I mean, they cannot. But I'm putting a lot of. I like Kyle Pitts a lot. I think that he's going to be solid. I'm still trusting him. I have him in a few leagues. I'm glad I grabbed him his rookie year, and I've been holding on to him, and I'm not really accepting anything. I'm not really accepting any low ball offers for him. I'm keeping him. And then Cole Kmet, he's kind of the odd man out in the room, because it's really like if you're either going to play Kyle Pitts or you're going to play George Kittle, depending on the matchups, you're going to play one or the other. Or if George Kittle is your guy for the year, he has a top 5 fantasy year, you're going to continue to play him. Kmet, things get a little murky for him with them not only bringing over Chase Claypool in the middle of the year last year, but also bringing in DJ Moore this offseason. So did we see the best of Kmet when he was pretty much the only guy on the field, because also Darnell Mooney missed some time last year? Or is Kmet ready to make that next step and also find himself in the top 12 tight ends, because he's just that good? It's really tough to say. he does have some value. I think if you were to move somebody that you could get a little bit of return on, maybe a couple picks, Komet would be the guy. But yeah, I mean, I like overall the room is good. Being only a single tight end league, it's hard to really hold on to three. You can always flex one. You could flex two technically, but it's really tough to really hold on to Komet. But I mean, I really wouldn't sell him for nothing.
Right, right. I mean, I think I agree with you completely there. And we'll get into potential moves that you or I would consider making with this team. I think tight end, much like quarterback, is another place where I'd look to maybe try and reassign that extra value. Um, don't take me wrong. I'm not anti 49ers, but George Kittle for me is another one that I'd probably, maybe I'd probably consider tossing on the trade block. I think if you were a Kittle owner last year, you'll probably remember that he went absolutely off in the playoffs. He won people their leagues, and he always has the capability to do that. But were any Kittle owners really in the playoffs with how he played for most of last year? There are a lot of moving pieces, of course, with the quarterback situation, like we touched on. But I think tight end is another place where I might try to reassign that value, depending on how you want to, attack the next year. So let me just get back to that other view, and we'll definitely have to clarify with Jeff if Kyle Pitts is on this team or not. The case of the disappearing Pitts, because he doesn't appear on this other this other link here. But yeah, why don't you just summarize for me? What do you think about this team? What do you think about its fortunes going into the 23 years? Is it a contender? Is it a pretender? It's hard to call it a rebuilder when he is the defending champion. But how do you see this team in the short term?
I think the short term definitely a contender. I think it's got all the right pieces. He's got wide receiver one potential and the guy that's already done it, already on the team. He's got very nice running backs. Obviously, when they're all healthy, it's could be one of the best trios in the league. We already talked about Jalen Waddle, so that's another solid wide receiver that he has. That's going to be a nice duo. Just overall, I think it's a solid team. I think it's going to contend. I think he could finish. Again, we don't have the other rosters in front of us, but should be in the top 4 for the league. Maybe get that first round bye being in the top 2. The thing that I've also noticed is you notice on like other 12 team leagues with deeper rosters like this is there's always 2-3 guys that like you're just scratching your head like, why are you holding on to this guy, or why is this guy in your roster? Right. I don't see that on this roster. Like, I mean, the only guy that I really mentioned that I would cut if I needed to was Sean Tucker, but again, that's a rookie. You could throw him on a taxi. You can you could see what happens through camp. So it's not like I'm giving up on him. But like every player like has potential to get a bigger role with either. I mean, you can say the same thing with everybody in the league with injuries. But like Corey Davis, we already talked about his quarterback upgrade. Gallup has already been at 2. If Cooks or Lamb goes down, he just slots right in. Jamo should slot right in as soon as he comes back, week 7 or 8. I don't know when their bye week is. Shaheed, we already saw solid from. Zay Flowers is another first round rookie that they got. So there's really not that 1 or 2 specific players that like, because I got a couple Ben Skoroneks on my team. And if you were to look at my roster, you were to break down my roster, Ben Skoronek would be a guy that you say to cut. I'm not seeing Jeff's Ben Skoronek. I'm not seeing the guy that I'm just cutting right now because I don't want to hold on to him. I think you should hold on to all these guys. If you got trade offers out there, yeah, trade them. But I'm not seeing that guy that I want off my roster, that I need off my roster to open up a spot right now.
No, I completely agree with you there too. That's actually, honestly a rarity. Even his quote unquote like dart throws, the deep dart throws in this team have a reasonable path, to upside. Even your like Malik Davis there could end up being, even if he takes like a small share of that Zeke role, could be a viable flex RB3 type. So yeah, I really do like this roster. I'm maybe not as high on it for the immediate the 2023 season. I think it's the kind of team that really could peak towards the end of the year. Of course, with the running backs coming back from injury, you add JMO and you kind of see what you get from JMO or Zay Flowers. I just think there might be a little bit of a struggle at the start of the year with Breece Hall, with Javonte, Jared Goff, of course, a very solid quarterback to have, but in a one quarterback league, he's not really your difference maker. By the end of the year, you could have a fit Kyler Murray. You could have Anthony Richardson, who's at that point running 100 yards every week. But to start the year, I would be a little bit concerned about picking up wins. If anything, I could see this sneaking in as like an 8-6 team, and then suddenly being the team that no one wants to face in the playoffs. So that's for the short term. What do you think about the team building, the kind of the steps of moving forward? How are you liking the future of this team?
Well, it's got a lot of nice younger pieces. Obviously, Breece, Ramondre, Jefferson, Waddle, all guys in their early to mid 20s. The quarterback, if Anthony Richardson ends up being the guy that we want him to be, he should be around for the next 10, 12 years. Just maybe giving you Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen type numbers for a fantasy quarterback. You got, like the core is there.
Mm-hmm.
AJ Dillon maybe takes over the backfield next year, 2024. So that's another on roster starter if they decide to part ways with Aaron Jones. And if it's anything like this year where we saw Dalvin Cook get cut, Lenny Fournette get cut, and Zeke get cut, Aaron Jones might fall right into that category right there. So AJ Dillon has a chance to definitely step up and be the guy. So a lot of nice young players. There is some age on this team. Jerick McKinnon, George Kittle, Jared Goff, we already talked about. Debo, I don't remember exactly how old he is, but I know
28,
he's definitely older than the other guys. So I think he can make a little nice run for 2-3 years. I think before we really have to start picking everything apart and breaking it all down. But it's definitely a roster that is going to be towards the top for the next couple of years.
No, I definitely agree with that. There is definitely a nice mix of ages with elite pieces already, but as well as upside. I did. This is this is not the segue I intended, but should we just toss up Jeff's picks, the picks that he's holding on to on the screen? Completely slipped my mind there. But this also, this should really also give us a picture of where the team could go in the next few years. Jeff does have 224 firsts. And that just gives him a lot of flexibility. You never want you want to have as many firsts as possible, but especially having firsts the next season's firsts, that gives him the versatility to make moves in season, or if it kind of goes a little bit pear-shaped to start the year, he can choose to sell off some pieces and aim to target the 24 draft as one that puts his team back into the elite contender level. So yeah, any quick thoughts about the picks that Jeff has?
Not really. Just based on the roster, you're probably anticipating his own first or his own picks being at the back 4 picks of each round. So 8 to 12 in each of the first 3. Actually, it looks like there only is 3 rounds in his league. The extra first and extra third that he got they're from the same guy, from the same owner. So you're hoping that he doesn't really have a good year, and maybe you get some early picks there. I've already been looking into guys for next year. It's personally the first 2 quarterbacks for next year's class are better than any quarterback, just on paper, are better than any quarterback in this class.
Right.
The wide receiver 1 overall trumps any wide receiver that was in this class. The tight end 1 overall trumps any tight end that was in this class. Obviously, the running back one from this class, Bijan, he's a generational player. But you got some solid. There's more size in next year's class too. The running backs seem a little bit bigger. They seem like guys that are the body types that you want in running backs. So even looking to the second and the third, you might get some steals there. So there's definitely some value with having those picks. And yeah, I mean, having 5 picks, that's 5 more rookies on your team. 3 of them are more premium because I think that the draft is going to be a little bit deeper. So that second even is a nice pick to have. Even if it is going to be 22, 23, 24 overall, it should be a solid pick.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I think he's in a good spot. Like I said, to make moves in season if he does see that opportunity to, push his team over the top again, or if he needs to target the draft as where he's gonna really make those reinforcements. I will say that I do think the weakness, if there is one in this team, is there is maybe a lack of elite pieces in the flex. Of course, Javonte just a year ago was going as in some leagues as the RB2, and now is a little bit questionable, especially for the upcoming year. DJ Moore, we do have high hopes with the team change, but wouldn't count him as an elite piece. So there is maybe a question of whether he can strengthen the flex. What would you do to improve this team?
Well, we talked about his strength probably being the wide receivers. So I might look at some wide receiver needy teams, and I don't know if you're not gonna get like Chase unless you're giving up Jefferson, but you might be able to get some mid range wide receivers. Maybe see if or give some mid range wide receivers and maybe try to upgrade somewhere else. But I think he's got the pieces. Let me bring the roster back up actually. I think he's got the pieces to, they're not elite pieces in the flex, but they're definitely guys that I wouldn't mind flexing at all. I mean, I'd flex these guys almost every week if I had to. So, and obviously gonna want to play the right matchups and everything, but having Javonte in there, having DJ Moore in there, maybe throw Michael Gallup in there in a week that the over-unders in the 50s. You got Jerick McKinnon. We saw him, and especially with Kansas City's offense, you want pieces of that offense all over the field. I mean, he's not going to be the every week putting up 25 points, but you might get him in a good week, especially week 1 against Detroit. I mean, we could only go off of what we had, what we know, and we know that Detroit's defense isn't that good.
Right.
So
right.
unless there's a major turnaround, I'm probably starting as many Chiefs as I can in week 1. And then kind of just seeing where Detroit's defense goes. But there's bodies out there. Look at the age or Aaron Jones owner, maybe see what you could get for Dylan. Look at the Nick Chubb owner, maybe see what you could get for Jerome Ford. Malik Davis is one that I really like because of Tony Pollard's body really hasn't had the workload that everybody thinks that Tony Pollard is going to get. So even if Malik he's not going to be Zeke. I don't think he's going to be Zeke, but he's not going to just give you 2 carries a game and be out there for only 5% of the game. He's going to have a bigger role this year, unless they bring Zeke back on a cheap deal, or they're getting Fournette, or they're bringing in Cook. Malik Davis is pretty much going to be the number 2. So he definitely has some value there. He's a guy that in a very favorable week, you could throw out there as a flex because they're putting up 45, 50 points. And, that Malik's going to get a lot of the second half work. But there's definitely, and like you mentioned already, you make it to middle of the season, you get JMO back, Hall and Javonte are ideally, they're fully healthy. We should have a nice second half there.
Right. Yeah. I do just want to. I think you summed that up pretty well. It's maybe there is a little bit more than meets the eye, and something that I just see now is I really like the Javonte Samaje Perine duo there. Perine actually had quietly a good year over in Cincinnati, and if Javonte isn't fully healthy to start the year, or completely misses some time, Perine is like a sneaky little addition to the team. If I were to try and improve, the flex spot there, I would target one of those positions, that I have that excess value, that being quarterback or tight end, I'd maybe consider moving someone like a Kittle to look at some like a Deontay Johnson, who I think is one of the best buys in Dynasty right now. Deontay actually set the NFL record for the most catches in a season without catching a touchdown. So that touchdowns aren't sticky year to year, so you'd expect some positive regression there. I think I would also look wide receiver wise, maybe at a player like Chris Godwin, who owner could be a lot lower on him due to the whole Baker or Kyle Trask situation. Sounds pretty gross, but we did this last year with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and look how that turned out. Or if you want to keep going down the cheap route and perhaps get a player plus second or a third for Kittle, maybe take a look at your aging running backs that still have a good outlook for the next year. You mentioned Aaron Jones as someone to try and sell someone for AJ Dillon. Maybe consider bringing Aaron Jones in to your team. He has that PPR upside. Same with James Conner, who figures to take 70% plus of the running back touches in Arizona, even though they're going to be a gross team. And maybe on the little bit of the younger side, Cam Akers, if the buy window hasn't closed, I think Cam Akers, who ended the year as RB4 in his last 6 games, the RB4, not a RB4. I think Cam Akers is also a pretty good buy. But I would try to use some of that excess value. I don't play in too many one quarterback leagues, but I think if you have this flexibility to move around, you should use that to your advantage.
Yeah, I'm in a couple of one quarterback leagues, one quarterback dynasties, and it is tough with quarterbacks because everybody's hoarding quarterbacks when you don't need to, and that it made me kind of waste 1 or 2 roster spots to hoard quarterbacks because I don't want to have to go out and overpay for one.
Right.
But moving one of the quarterbacks might be tough. Like I said earlier, Anthony Richardson, you could probably get a good deal for him, but unless somebody's desperate and needs one and maybe has both Tampa guys and Ritter and Howell, then I don't know if you're going to get anything for any of the other guys. But I do agree with moving the excess positions that you have. You mentioned quarterback and tight end, so I'll go back to tight end too. And maybe even look at moving Kyle Pitts. Maybe find somebody that's as high as I am on him. Kittle's going to probably give you the shorter career go from here on out. But Pitts, you could probably find somebody that believes in him, saw what he did in his rookie year, realizes that he was injured last year and that there was a quarterback transition. And maybe you can get what you were getting for Kyle Pitts in his rookie year in a return. So I would definitely look that way because we all know that the tight end position is more scarce than any other position. So if you can't find somebody that's weak for wide receivers where you have an excess, then you could definitely find somebody that's weak at tight end where you could try to move Pitts.
No, that really would be a good plan. I mean, Kyle Pitts, especially a one quarterback league, was a first round pick maybe last year. So I think there definitely could be the market there for one of the 2 tight ends. Of course, we'll have to figure out if this is Schrodinger's Pitts. He is actually on this squad. But no, thank you very much, Jerry, for for breaking down this roster. I think that we really got deep into it. Probably went a little bit longer than we hope to in most of these roster reviews. But I hope everyone watching enjoyed this chat. Jerry, why don't you just close us off? Tell the people again where they can find you, what you've been working on, and if there's anything they can look forward to coming out from you.
All right, so yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JerryWilkieFM. Notifications are on. I'm not really as active as other people are on Twitter, but I do see everything that comes through. So if you ever need to reach out, I'll get it to the phone. If you want to at me or whatever, you can do that. You can also find us in the Discord. which we'll have the link in the description. So definitely check out the Discord. That's where everything is right now. There's a lot of Scott Fishbowl talk going on right now. There's a lot of trade talk and orphan leagues going on. So basically, if you're looking to talk fantasy football, the Discord is where you want to go. And that's it. I mean, like I said, I am the IDP. I do the IDP podcast for in season, so we're going to be firing that back up shortly. Get some preseason stuff, get some rankings and predictions going out there for anybody that plays IDP. If not, then you might see me on some other shows as a guest for Jeff or any of the other shows that we got going on Going for Two Network.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for shouting out the Discord again. Yeah, I just want to plug Going for all of the other content for Going for Two. Of course, we do have the YouTube channel. We do have the audio that you can find in your usual podcast sources, but do check out the website as well. Get into the Discord, which is of course the best way for you to get your rosters to us, but also to guarantee that we get to your roster. We're going to be giving priority to people who are in the Discord. Jump in for Scott Fishbowl chat. I'm still waiting on my invite, Scott. So get me in there. No, all jokes aside. Jerry, thank you very much for coming on this, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, definitely. This was fun. I love breaking down the roster. So if there are any that have IDP, we're here. If you want to have us break down your defenses and kickers, we can do that too. But for the most part, send in those rosters and we'll